My next guest wears many hats, including mother, senator and state president of the Liberal Party. Leah Blyth is a matter of months into her Senate career, having replaced former Minister Simon Birmingham earlier in the year. And she joins me in the 891 studio for the first time. Senator, good morning.
Good morning, Rory, and good morning to all your listeners.
Now, during the first two sitting weeks of this new parliamentary term, you delivered your maiden address to the Senate. You discussed being a social conservative and an economic liberalist, pointing to limited government intervention as being the surest path to prosperity. With that in mind, what do you have to say about the interventions that we are seeing today when it comes to support for the Port Pirie smelter and potentially smelting operations in other parts of the country?
Absolutely, Rory, and I think what's happening in our regional communities is certainly regrettable, but and the government bailouts that we're seeing are necessary. But the unfortunate thing is they are not addressing the underlying policy settings that have put us in a position where government needs to bail out. So in going back to my maiden speech, and I think it's fair to say we have been here before, and some of your listeners will remember the 70s where it was big government spending, very poor public policy regulations, and we found ourselves not being as prosperous as we possibly could have been. So I would say to both the state and federal governments that while the bailouts are propping up the regional communities and these very important industries, I would challenge them to address the actual settings that are putting these industries and businesses in the position that they are.
Well, let's touch on that, and let's stick to talking about that speech, because you did speak of bold market-based reforms through the 80s and 90s. Now, within weeks, the federal government will hold its economic roundtable. If you talk about those policy settings, is it time to shake up the national tax system? And should that also include another look at the GST?
I think that everything should be on the table for us at the moment, Rory. We are experiencing very low growth here in Australia and productivity is down. We are seeing ourselves basically inducing agricultural manufacturing poverty, and I think we absolutely need to look at even how the tax system is interacting with families now. We've had things last 2 weeks in Parliament. We had the childcare reforms come through. It is not a one-size-fits-all in terms of how tax works, even for families. So I absolutely think that everything should be on the table because businesses are struggling, families are struggling, hard-working Australians. We've got two parents in a household working and they are experiencing poverty. So it's not working now.
How would you help a family if you're talking about tax and tax reform? How would you help families? What would you do if you had your hands on the lever?
Oh, goodness me, what wouldn't I do? No, how far can we go? Look, I think the tax system absolutely has to respect where modern families are, and I think the difference between now and the 70s is mum and dad both have to work. So you both have to work to be able to afford your rent, afford your mortgage, pay the grocery bills. So I think it is absolutely vital that we look at how can we make childcare accessible. So should we be having, say, tax-deductible childcare? Should there be a voucher system? Should we be allowing families to aggregate their income so that if you've got one parent working part-time, that you're not punished by the tax system that is taxing us as individuals? So I think there are lots of things that we can be doing for families to help them in this cost of living crisis.
Thank you to John for this text, who writes, if everything is on this table, how big is the table?
It should be big, I think, because we haven't looked at GST in a long time, and certainly that is not my portfolio or shadow portfolio that I look after. But we've got to be having these discussions with the Australian people because what we're seeing is debt increasing. So we are going to be set to have $1 trillion national debt. These are my children, grandchildren that are going to be paying for this debt. So we've got to start living within our means in Australia. And I think as leaders and as politicians who are in a very privileged position to be able to put up legislation, we should be honest with the Australian people about some of the tough choices that are going to need to be made.
Does that extend to spending?
Absolutely. We tell our families, and certainly, on the Liberal Party, you live within your means. Families don't get to go out there and spend more than what they have. So why should the Australian government?
You were critical, I think it's fair to say, of the campaign the party ran at the federal election back in May. And again, just to quickly remind everyone, it's not that long ago, but the SA division lost the seat of Sturt for the first time in a generation, as well as a senator. Now, you wrote in the immediate aftermath, from one-off tax offsets to temporary fuel excise cuts, we offered sugar hit policies aimed at snagging headlines and quick votes, but failed to offer any credible long-term solution to the country's difficulties. Now, I want to ask you a couple of things about this. 3 months on, what do you think those credible long-term solutions should be specifically?
And I think I have to be a little bit careful about going into specific policy. Obviously, as a party room, we have processes that we go through. But I would certainly, in my position in the party room, it is looking at those longer term solutions. So we should be looking at what kind of tax benefits. So the fuel discount was a sort of classic one where it was a sugar hit. It was an immediate sort of very small tokenistic gesture to voters, but we should be looking at long term. So why are people struggling to be able to pay for their fuel? Why is this in a cost of living crisis making it so that families are choosing between filling up the fuel with petrol or paying their electricity bills? So I want to see the Liberal Party, and certainly my role in the party room is advocating for bigger policy reform where we actually address the root cause of what is creating some of these challenges for all Australians.
Now, given your position in the party as, at both the state and federal level, what responsibility do you take for the election result?
Absolutely, and I think we all take responsibility for our part in the election campaign. I think it is always a very tricky one where you have team discipline, and certainly I think I'd been in for 3 weeks before the election campaign proper started, and there is a discipline that comes with the team. I think for me, it's maybe not speaking up enough. But being new, you're sort of respecting your place in it. In terms of being party president here with the SA division, the divisions play a very small role in a federal election. We have much more autonomy and control at a state level, but I absolutely take responsibility, even as a grassroots member of the Liberal Party, that we should have been pushing harder for standing for something, having some conviction and being consistent in our messaging and our approach to policy positions.
Looking back now, you're in this sort of twilight zone because it's still very fresh, but you've now got a little bit of space from that result. Again, with a bit of space now, what more do you think you could have done differently?
I think for us, it's the policies that we were putting up to the Australian people. I would, and I've been very public and critical about this in terms of the going out there, doing polling and doing what's popular. I am very, very critical of populist policy positions. I don't think it leads to long-term good policy outcomes for the Australian people. So in terms of if I was going to pick one thing in this twilight zone, and we are in an incredible opportunity now, everything is on the table. I think it would be going back to our values, going back to what's proven to have worked for generations, and making solid policy decisions based on those things, not on what we think people will vote for.
It's coming up to 10 minutes to 10. That is the voice of Liberal Senator for South Australia, Leah Blyth, who's joining me in the studio for the first time here on the morning show. Senator, can I ask you about Susan Lee? Did you support her becoming leader?
Susan Lee is our leader. She has been doing a fantastic job of getting our party room together, and certainly she is allowing policy discussion to be happening. I'm very grateful to Susan Lee for offering me the shadow portfolio of Stronger Families and Stronger Communities. What does that portfolio actually do? It's a very good question. It is a very, very broad portfolio area that I've got. It sits under social services and it touches on, all kinds of things, tax, it touches into certainly family law. So I am really enjoying being able to speak to a whole range of people, both in the cities and in the regional communities, all different kinds of families, whether that be multicultural or Australian, and working out how we can get some policy settings. I think it's fair to say we didn't appeal to those groups at the last election that we just had, and I'm really conscious about working hard to make sure that we're understanding what challenges those communities and families are experiencing. I'm a mother of three. I'm from a multicultural background, and so I think there are some insights that I can give to that will be really beneficial.
I guess the question here as well, though, Senator, is that is this a ground zero? Is this a back to square one sort of moment for your party at a national level? And how long will this sort of looking around the room go on for until you start to put the pieces, take pieces off the table and put them into a puzzle somewhere if we're going to mix our metaphors up here?
And that is a very, very good point, because I think this is something that's come up in conversations I've had, is absolutely take the time to listen, but you should also know better. So what have you been doing for the last however many years? So I absolutely take that on board. You're absolutely right. We will need to start putting those pieces back together. But I think it's really important that we understand where we went wrong. And part of that is the federal review that we're undertaking. And we've got some fantastic reviewers in Nick Minchin and Prue Goward. And so I think that is certainly going to be helpful for us in piecing that back together, because we've got to really firmly understand what we did wrong and not just assume those things.
It's interesting, and as we talk, Senator Blyth, I look to what is happening on ABC News Channel right now, and the cameras are set up outside of the Port Pirie smelter waiting for the press conference with the Premier Peter Malinauskas, the Federal Industry Minister Tim Ayres, South Australia's Minister for Mining and Energy, Tom Koutsantonis, and Trafigura, who are the parent company of Nearstar. So we will bring you that as soon as we can. But while I still have you, Leah Blyth, can I just go back to Susan Lee? Did you support her or not?
I absolutely support our leader. There is a hierarchy to our party, and it doesn't work if we're not all united. I think the Australian people are a bit sick to death of the internal Liberal machinations and us talking about ourselves and navel-gazing at ourselves. So absolutely.
Didn't you also have that sort of play out again last week when it came to net zero, when you had Senator from one side of the party, Alex Antic, voting one way on a bill with net zero, and Senator for South Australia, Andrew McLaughlin, voting on another?
Isn't that the beauty of our party? We are absolutely a broad range of people and ideas, and I think that is absolutely one of our strengths. I see that kind of freedom for us to be able to discuss what we believe in and as a party room make those decisions as something that really stands us apart from the Labor Party. The Labor Party are told by the union movement how they are going to vote on things. In the Liberal Party, we get to have those discussions in our party room.
We've got another text here. Diane has sent us a message saying, the Senator never answered the question, did she support Susan as leader? Can you ask her again?
I absolutely support our leader. In terms of how votes happen in those internal party room processes, they are secret ballots, and I will respect that that's how we do things in the Liberal Party, but I am unequivocally 100% behind our leader and Susan Lee.
How big a challenge does she have before her? You're a relatively newcomer to that party room. You've seen how this leadership process played out, very fresh into your term as a senator. We've seen obviously the split between the Nats, the Nationals, and then the Liberals, and then the coming back together as a part of all this.
How do I see it? I think we can't underestimate the challenge that any leader of the Liberal Party has, and our leader in Susan certainly has her challenges ahead of us. But I think, again, the Australian people are sick of us talking about ourselves. They just want us to get down to business in representing them. And I think we are doing the Australian people a disservice. The more we internally talk about what's going on, who's disagreeing or agreeing with who, the less that we're focused on what we're there to do, and that is to come up with good policy and be a good alternative government for the Australian people, because they're struggling under this Labor government.
Let's pivot, if we can, in the moments we have left, to the state team. We talk about the challenges before Susan Lee. What about the challenges before Vincent Tarzia and the state Liberal team as they head towards March next year? What does success, realistically, what does success look like for the state Liberal team at the 2026 election?
That's a very good question, and I think, again, we've got a fantastic leader in Vincent Tarzia who is working harder than I've probably seen any leader work before, and success for us looks like putting up strong policy. It's putting up principled positions, and it's holding the line and offering an alternative government to the South Australian people. We are seeing government bailout after government bailout. We're seeing the state debt increasing to rise. I think that's up to 47 billion at last look. That is a debt that all South Australians that aren't even born today are going to inherit. So I think for us, for the state team, it is very much around putting up highlighting, I guess, the promises that Labor have made, and that includes in ramping, and highlighting that there is an alternative way. And I think that's absolutely what our state team will be focused on doing.
And is it your intention to stay on as party president?
There is our State Council AGM is in a few weeks' time, so we will see what comes out of that process.
So again, is that a yes or a no, Leah Blyth?
The process hasn't even run yet.
But would you like to stay on then? Or is it, you've been in the chair for just over a year, you're now a member, you're now a senator. That is quite a workload.
I have a huge workload. I am incredibly passionate about Liberal Party, and I want to see us succeed, and certainly anything that I can do to assist us in that process, I am very happy to do. I believe that for responsible government, you've got to have a good opposition. And I think the Labor Party at both a federal and a state level are making it very difficult with the banning of core flutes. We've now got a banning of political donations. It is a really tough environment to be in. It's
coming up to 2 minutes to 10. And Terry has called in from West Lakes with a quick question. Good morning, Terry.
Hi. You hearing me okay?
Yes, we've got you there, Terry.
Yeah, okay. I wonder what the Senator thinks about her council dumping a popular, competent female in Anne Ruston for the number one Senate spot in favour of a firebrand Conservative in Alex Antic.
Terry, thank you for your question. Leah Blyth.
We run democratic processes in the Liberal Party. I think I respect absolutely that our members get to have a say in pre-selections, which for senators, for legislative councillors, and for all members that we put up. Again, that is different to how the Labor Party does things. So, in terms of members wanting to have a say, I respect the decisions that our members make.
Senator Leah Blyth, we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you for your company this morning. Thank you for coming in and joining us on Mornings.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for having me.